Welcome to this webinar hosted by Pomerol Partners. It's great to have so much interest in the Writeback extension as we launch version 3. The extension has really taken on a life of its own. We're seeing an incredible range of use cases coming out of the woodwork, and it's exciting to see the impact that it's having on clients' Qlik applications. We're holding two 30-minute webinars. This webinar will be focused on the business user experience, their interaction with the extension, and the use cases from a business user perspective. We're holding a more technical webinar in the same slot tomorrow. If you're looking for more information on how things work, then please register for that session too. So some quick intros so that you know who's talking to you. My name's Scott Duthie. I'm a principal consultant at Pomerol Partners, and I've been with the firm for nearly 5 years. I spent a few years with the firm in London before relocating to Denver to help kick off our US operations. I spent a lot of time in the Qlik ecosystem as a developer over the last 5 years or so. I've been heavily involved in steering the development of this product, which is why I'm presenting to you on this webinar today. So a little bit of background on Pomerol Partners and who we are as a company. We're a business intelligence consultancy, and we're heavily focused on helping companies produce high impact reporting to optimize processes. And then inevitably that leads to increased revenues and reduced costs. We often use the Qlik platform to deliver our solutions, and as an elite Qlik partner of many years now, 6 or 7 years, we know the platform intimately. However, we do also partner with many other software providers in the BI space, especially on the predictive analytics and machine learning side. We spend a lot of time helping companies integrate other platforms and tools with their Qlik ecosystem. As a company, we were born out of the investment banking industry in London. We've since broadened our reach and now have clients in many sectors, pharmaceuticals, retail, supply chain, manufacturing, that's just a few. In response to an ever-increasing demand for our services in the US, we then opened an office in Chicago about 3 years ago, and we now have a team of about 70 consultants spread across the UK, the US, and South Africa. We work closely with a broad range of clients of all sizes, and many of these are currently using the Writeback extension in their Qlik environments. The experience we've had in deploying the extension in large enterprises has been invaluable. We've encountered all the nuances of multi-node environments and complex security. At Pomerol, we really put a strong emphasis on this idea of cross-pollination of ideas and methods. And what I mean by that is taking the BI and analytics lessons from one industry and seeing how they can disrupt or impact the traditional reporting that we see in another industry. And working with such a wide variety of clients, it really allows us to be effective in that mission. So in terms of an agenda today, we're tight on time, so I'm going to move fast. We have a wide range of people on the webinar, some interested from a business or tech perspective and some more from a commercial perspective. So I'll try to deliver a one-size-fits-all type of demo. Please keep hold of any questions. If we don't have time during the webinar to address those, I can answer those directly as a follow-up after the webinar. So what is the Writeback extension? It's an extension that is embedded in your Qlik Sense environment that allows both analyzer and professional users to input and capture data directly within their published Qlik applications. So where traditionally you would need to sort of update or edit your source data in an ERP or CRM system, or within an Excel spreadsheet or a collaborative environment like SharePoint or a Google Doc, the Writeback extension it'll let you capture that data and input that directly in the Qlik app. It'll then push that data out to a SQL database and then load it back in so that the amended data is embedded within the associative data model and available to use instantly. And that data is held in memory in the Qlik app. I've seen some really great bolt-ons to the Qlik ecosystem over the years, but this extension is one that gets me pretty excited because it really disrupts that traditional data flow through the Qlik ecosystem. For the business user, BI tools are generally a read-only experience. The writeback really lets you operationalize Qlik. So instead of just reporting, you can use Qlik to manage processes and workflow. I think more than ever, we're seeing Qlik users looking at using Qlik as more of a platform than just a ring-fenced product, and looking for ways to connect and integrate with other systems and other tools. And the writeback extension is really just a natural progression in this area. So I want to show the traditional data flow into Qlik from left to right here, and show you where the writeback actually fits in. So we've got a range of enterprise data sources over on the left. These are obviously ones people will be familiar with, on-prem cloud data sources. And we're generally reloading this into our Qlik applications on a reload schedule. Now, you may have some ETL processes that are happening in Qlik, or you might be using another ETL tool, but either way, you'll be producing a set of QVDs that your Qlik applications are consuming. So users can edit a selection of records in the extension. There's a Node.js app that passes the data that you've selected and edited into SQL queries, and then it's pushed across to a SQL database. As soon as the data is committed to that SQL database, a partial reload of the application is triggered, and that edited data is then pulled into memory and becomes immediately available for analysis in your Qlik application. So the key thing to note here is that while your traditional ETL flow is sort of running into Qlik on a schedule that may happen hourly, it may happen daily, the writeback extension is enabling these edits live on the fly, and it's updating that data model in real time. So that was a very brief look at how and where the writeback process fits into the Qlik architecture and workflow. In the technical webinar session that we're doing tomorrow, we'll be diving in a lot deeper into that actual workflow and process of that iterative sort of writeback cycle. So now we have an understanding of sort of what the extension does and the data flow behind it. So how does the extension improve the user experience? We've boiled this down to 3 key points. So the first one is doing more within the Qlik ecosystem. So the writeback extension, it stops users needing to leave the Qlik ecosystem to capture new data. And that's great for the user experience, and it also helps push some more value from the Qlik platform that you already have and you've already invested in. The second key piece here is it accelerates the pace of that data cycle. And we just talked about this. Instead of waiting an hour or waiting for a daily refresh, we can input data and see that iterative cycle, and that can happen at the pace of business. And the third piece here is all about driving collaboration in Qlik. So self-service analytics it's a pretty or relatively new concept. And data and insight is often distributed to the edges of the organization, but those users at the endpoint, they don't always have a way to interact with each other and input their feedback into the system. I always think that analytics shouldn't just be read only. It should be a two-way conversation and truly interactive. And this is what the writeback extension enables. So what are the common use cases? In sales, people are using it to add notes to sales opportunities or to enrich the customer record with data points that might not be available in the CRM. So this is especially useful for things like short-term requirements, promotions, for example, leaving a note beside a customer on their reaction to a promotion. It's quick and easy to set up in Qlik, doesn't require a permanent change to the CRM system, and it might be just a temporary need for a few months, and then when it's no longer required, it can be removed. Sales is also using the extension to model things like the impact of discounts and to create an approval workflow within Qlik for things like applying discounts and negotiation processes. In operations, we've got production line managers that are using the extension and Qlik apps on the factory floor, often in iPads, and they're using it to record things like fallout and issues on the production line. Finance is using the extension often to send transaction or to escalate OPEX transactions to managers, asking them for a narrative or explanation for certain invoices or certain expenses or transactions that have gone through their books. It's also commonly being used by finance to capture, qualitative commentary around variance analysis or just general analysis of what people are seeing in their Qlik dashboards. And then on the IT side, there's a range of use cases that we can actually enable for directly supporting the Qlik environment. So most Qlik environments will have some level of Excel tables or Excel workbooks that have been used as mapping tables or reference tables. So you can actually get rid of Excel and manage those mapping tables directly in the Qlik environment itself. We've also used it as a tactical master data management solution. So we can use Qlik to actually highlight data issues or unmapped master data, and then create alerts and then let users actually fix that dirty data, directly in the Qlik app itself. So now I want to move on to a product demo, and we're going to actually jump in and take a look at a Qlik application that has the extension up and running in it. So what we're looking at here is a sales scenario where we have sales reps that are selling wholesale food into restaurants. We can see our restaurants here and our customers. We've got the Jazz House, Roots Bar and Bistro. And these first 5 columns in blue, these are really representing the transactions from our ERP system. Now, what we're using the Writeback extension for is to add this additional information over to the right. So these rows that you're seeing in the red, the green, and the amber, that's indicating whether these transactions or discounts have been approved or whether they're pending or whether they've been rejected. So let's select a few of these transactions and we'll go and make some edits. So I'm going to select this restaurant here called the Jazz House. And I'm just going to select a subset of these transactions, and we're going to go and apply some different discounts and leave some narrative as to why we're allocating the discounts. So down in the bottom right-hand corner of the application, we've got this icon here, which is the Writeback extension. If I click on this, it's going to push that subset of transactions into the editing window. So what we can do in here now is we can come and actually edit some of the data. So the first thing I have here is a drop-down menu, and this is essentially like a filter pane in Qlik Sense, and I can go and choose the transaction type or the product type related to this transaction. So I might say the first one's frozen goods and this one's handling only. And then I can go over and actually allocate a discount to these transactions. So I might make the first one, give them a discount of 65%. Maybe this one should be 55%. There might be a use case where I want to allocate the same discount to all records that I've selected. So we've got this bulk edit option. So in here, I'm going to go and give all of these transactions a discount of 55%. And you can see that applied down the entire column. So the same thing we can do here with text input. I can go and add a narrative here. So maybe this is our, October special deal. So I can add that in there. I could do this one record at a time, or the same thing again, I can actually go and apply this to the entire column. We've got the concept of a checkbox here to flag records. So I can mark a few of these for expedited delivery. And this is being stored as a sort of true-false binary flag in our database. And then on the end here, I'm allocating a status. So I can set the status here as pending. As a sales rep, traditionally I wouldn't be able to see this status. What we would do is we would hide this from sales reps, and we'd only reveal it maybe to the sales manager who's actually coming in and approving or rejecting. So now that I've made some edits, I can go down to save here, and if I click save, what's happening in the background here is the extension has communicated those edits with the Node.js app that sits on the Qlik server. We've pushed that edited data back to our SQL database. As soon as that data is committed to that SQL database, a confirmation of that is sent to Qlik, and the engine API triggers a partial reload of the application. As soon as that partial reload is completed, we can now see that data is held in memory, it's in my data model, and it's available for analysis. So those discounts I've allocated, I can see the impact of those discounts at a high level across, my sales territory, for example. So we can see that discount of 55%, and we called it the October special deal, and we marked a few of these for expedited delivery. And if I just jump across to a picture of the data model itself, we can see here's the actual original transactions, and this is the table here of our edits, the writeback database. This is that we're keeping those edits off to the side so that when we trigger that partial reload, this table here reloads, very, very quick. We want that to keep that down to 2 or 3 seconds and maintain that really fluid user experience. So we can come at this from a different angle. I might be a sales manager, for example, and I might want to come in and look at what my sales reps have been doing. So I might filter on all of the pending transactions, and it's my job to come and either reject or approve or maybe amend what the sales rep has put in here. So I'm going to select these pending transactions for October as an example, and I might just select a subset of these transactions just to make it a bit easier for us. Now I'm going to pop open my editing window again, and as the sales manager, I'm going to go over to the status column here, and I can start to sort of approve or reject these different transactions. And obviously this can then create an alert, and can then the sales rep can then go and see the transactions that they then need to readjust or make amendments to. I can also leave a comment here as to why I've rejected these transactions. So if I hit save, once again, in a couple of seconds, we'll see those edits pop into our data model. So there's the 2 that I approved. They've just gone green, and we've seen those pop up down at the bottom there. So we've looked at a couple of editing examples, but what other kind of functionality is there for the user? So if I pop open the extension window again, down the bottom here, you'll see these 3 icons. So it opens up on the edit data pane. We also have a settings window. So what we're doing in the settings here is we can actually adjust how the users interact with the fields that they are editing. So we can allocate whether or not we want that field to be enabled for bulk edits. We can make the field restricted so that only certain user groups can see that field. And then we can choose the type of edit. So we saw an example of all of these today, the different drop-down menus. We have the filter pane in there that looks at all the distinct values that exist in that field in the Qlik data model. And then we've got free text input box, and we've also got that checkbox here. And then moving over, we've got our user management module here on the side. And what we're doing here is we're managing the users that are allowed to actually use the writeback extension within this application. So we might have 100 users of this app, but we only want 20 of them to be able to actually interact with the writeback extension. So what we can do in here is we can allocate those users. So if I grab another user from our directory, I'll pick John Fitzgerald. I want to make him an admin user, and I click submit. We'll see John Fitzgerald added to the bottom of our list. And likewise, we can also go and delete users all through the GUI here. So I'm not going to get too technical on this webinar, but I'd like to quickly go over how the extension's configured from the perspective of the app builder or the business user. And there's really 3 key steps. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create the tables in the SQL database that we'll be writing our data back to. So we provide a template script for this so that it's quick and easy each time you need to set up these tables for a new use case. The second thing we need to do is we need to update our Qlik load script. So we need to update the script so that when the partial reload gets triggered, our script is actually pulling across that data from the SQL database. So you'll see here, there's a couple of partial reload script functions that we're calling here. So one here is partial reload. Another partial reload function is this replace function here. And what this is saying is that when a partial reload is triggered, I want you to go and actually load this. I want you to load this section of script here. And then the third step is actually just configuring the extension itself in the front end. So the extension is just an object that lives over in our custom objects library on the left. And then in terms of the settings and configuration, we need to choose those fields in our data model that we want to be able to edit and set them as dimensions. And then the only other part here is just setting up the connection properties. And this is just telling us which tables in our SQL database we want to be pushing the information back to. So that really sums up the product from a business user standpoint. We've intentionally kept it simple to make it easy to use and accommodate a broad range of use cases. So once the extension's up and running, where does the value and the ROI come from? And we generally see companies benefiting in these three key areas. So the first one is that reduced spreadsheet risk. This is a really quick one. Qlik scripts are very sensitive to formatting in spreadsheets. Shared spreadsheets can easily become corrupted or contain errors. They often need consolidation, and it's very hard to track history and changes. The writeback is underpinned by a SQL database and all the natural governance and structure that comes with having that formal database behind the data capture. The second thing is just increased productivity, and that's partly a function of the item that we just covered. So rapid iterations of entering data and seeing the results in your apps can significantly improve processes and sort of save time and effort. And the last place where you can sort of replace something like a Google Doc or Monday.com with the writeback, there's an opportunity there to save on licensing for those third-party systems. If you're paying for custom connectors to third-party systems, for example, you may also be able to remove the reliance on those connectors. Now, in terms of implementation, these are the general steps that we follow. So the extension is not a pure plug and play. We stay quite involved through that initial install and setup process. The extension is communicating with the SQL database. So there's some configuration in ensuring that the components are communicating and authenticating with each other correctly. So step one is that we'll send the client a prerequisite checklist to ensure that the environment's ready for the install. So this covers things like the Java and Node versions that need to be installed and making sure that there's an account ready to access that SQL database with read and write privileges. Just getting some of those details organized. We'll then share an install package prior to the install meeting, and that includes things like the back-end code and the front-end extension and a demo Qlik application that you can get up and running in your environment. And then we'll assist on with the install on a call, and we'll walk through those installation steps with you. And then we'll help get your first use case up and running in one of your Qlik apps. In terms of proof of concept and evaluation, and sort of how we move forward and either get more information or evaluate the extension. As mentioned earlier, we do have another webinar which is going to be more technical focused. So that will be a great source of information for the more technical folks. A recording of this webinar is going to be available for your reference to share with colleagues or to refer back to. For any specific questions, please send those across to us. We're happy to jump on a demo call and we can dig into those questions or your use cases in detail. Beyond that, we have a demo environment with sample apps. So we can actually grant you access into that environment, and you can sort of test drive and play around with some of these example apps that have the Writeback extension in them. For a proof of value, we can actually take one of your use cases and we can set that up in our environment. So we like to do that because it means we can do that. It's quite quick and fast for us to do that within our environment. And then beyond that, and as a sort of final evaluation step, we can set up a 30-day proof of value pilot in your own environment. So there's plenty of options and opportunities there to get more info and to evaluate the extension against your specific use cases. So the last piece I wanted to cover here today is pricing. So pricing is on a per user per month basis. The small medium business pricing starts at $25 per user per month, and that's for an installed base of 25 users. Moving on to enterprise, an enterprise install, we start offering volume discounts that kick in after 100 users. And then just another point to note here on user licensing is that, as I mentioned earlier, not all users in your Qlik environment need to have a writeback license. So you might have 100 users of an app, but you only want to enable 25 of those users to actually use the extension. So also keep that one in mind. So that's it from me today. Thanks everyone for joining the webinar. As mentioned earlier, please feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions. You can get me on scott@pomerolpartners.com or head to the Pomerol Partners website to request a demo or set up a follow-up call. Bye for now.